So that's what I'm doing right now. And that way, when I do the side-by-side screen sharing, I can change the sizes of the display and the people so that it shows up better on the recording when you look at it later on YouTube. All right, so let me share my screen here. First of all, welcome everyone. I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And this February CARD meeting is a quarterly meeting, so we have a few more people, a few more officials on. I'll remind everyone that
hey, Roger, this is a February meeting or March meeting. I'm sorry.
Oh, March meeting. Yeah, March meeting. Thanks for, you know, I had a lot happen in January, March, where I had COVID in January, and then we lost power for about 7 days.
That's all.
5 days in February and 2 days in March. I'm still getting caught up.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, and then so let me share my screen so you can see the quarterly meeting, the March meeting here with EGLE. And what I can do, I recommend that you go up and make your view, if you're on a computer, to make a gallery view so you can see more than just the speaker talking. And that way we can, it's better flow of information. You'll be able to see who's reacting and who's talking. So I'm recording a gallery view over on my second computer over here. So the meetings are being recorded, and so if there's something that you don't want made public, don't say it or make arrangements for us to wipe it out later. But this will be posted to YouTube within a day or two, usually within a same day, actually. So let's get on with the meeting. Jack, first, Beth, if you want to go over the approval of the February minutes.
Thank you, Roger. And for those of you, if you're joining us and you did not get an email invitation and would like to be on the CARD email list, please let me know in the chat your email. If you did get an email, then you're already on it, but I have a couple that it's your second or third month, and I don't know if you're getting the invite. So I'd be more than happy to put you on the email list. And the next thing is approval of the February minutes. I've had no changes or corrections. Is there any comments, or do I have a motion to approve the February minutes? A motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Is all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved.
Thanks
you.
again, Beth. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. And now I'll turn it over to Jack Eaton, who will moderate wonderfully.
You're too kind. I want to note that we're starting about 10 minutes into the 2-hour period. So we're going to try to keep us on in motion so that we can be finished on time. Is there anyone here from the EPA that would like to speak, update us on the progress on that matter? Is there anyone from Debbie Dingell's office?
Yes, Jack, Georgia Frost. Maybe we could introduce her. She's Congresswoman Dingell's representative now that will be helping us. Hi, Georgia.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you.
It's good to have you join us. Do you have any updates from the Congresswoman?
I believe that the Congresswoman herself would have been joining at this time, but I don't think she was able to join yet. And I think that if she does join a little bit later, if it would be possible for her to share updates at that time, that would be great. It's possible she got held up with something. At this time, I personally really just, trying to get caught up and learn. I did get some background from Joel, who was the previous person from our office attending these meetings. But currently I need to learn more about the issue, and I've done my background research, but really just trying to make sure I absorb everything today from this meeting, so that I have more information to take back to our team.
Well, if we can be of any assistance, you can reach out to any board member of CARD and ask your questions. We really appreciate the Congresswoman's work on our behalf. And if anybody notices Debbie join us at any point in the meeting, bring it to my attention, and we'll just switch over to that. I don't see Dan here. Is Dan here today?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wrong Dan. Dan Bicknell. We haven't turned it over to you yet, Mr. Hamill.
I know.
Okay, so we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the EGLE update. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, this is some of the items that have been on the agenda for a while. So as far as a request for information that is in the confidentiality agreement, I have no new update. It's still, that data is still in the confidentiality agreement. We were asked last month about the other avenue, the Part 201 letter that went out and requested. We have not continued with that. Basically, we are working really right now to get some type of agreement. So we've kind of backed off on continuing to pursue the under Part 201, the data that isn't being held in confidentiality. So that's where we are right now. So I really don't have any update that we haven't received the data, and we'll pursue that as time allows in the future here, after we're concentrating on getting some type of an agreement to get the correct criteria back into play at the site. So the next one, are there any updates for the current CJ? Again, as I said, we are negotiating with Gelman. For those of you that don't know, the Court of Appeals stopped the fourth amended CJ, the response activity order that Gelman was implementing under a court order, and sent it back that the third amended CJ is the CJ that is being used to regulate the site. That third amended CJ is really has old criteria, not the new criteria for 1,4-dioxane for drinking water and GSI. So we are working with Gelman, negotiating with Gelman to try to get an updated agreement to get that the applicable criteria back into as the criteria that will be used at the Gelman site. So as far as more placement and monitoring wells, I can't really comment on that. The negotiations that we were with Gelman are confidential, as they were before when we were doing negotiations for a CJ. So Gelman's remediation and update new monitoring plan. Roger, can I share? Can you let me share the I didn't send you the documents. I just have a couple of figures again. Do I have permission? I can't hear you.
I stopped my share. You should be able to share now.
Okay. All right. Tell me when you see a figure.
There it is.
Got it. Yep.
Okay, this is the figure that I have been showing last couple of months. This is the figure that was being utilized when the response activity order was being implemented by Gelman under court order. It was a court-ordered response activity requirements. And as I've discussed before, they installed monitoring wells at the yellow location clusters and have proposed other areas that were part of the response activity order. The Court of Appeals has eliminated that response activity order, and now we're back at the third amended CJ, which doesn't require additional activities because it has the old criteria. So as far as an update, we are continuing to plan for continuation of installation of monitoring wells. These two areas here, these location I and J, we're expecting those to be installed. Gelman has verbally identified that they are planning to install those, so that we're hoping that we can get these installed in the first half of 2023. They also, the area, the Rosewell remediation area is an area where there is a extraction well. Extraction well is proposed to be installed to assist in extraction. That's an area that doesn't have an extraction well, but has high concentrations in groundwater. Gelman has identified verbally that they are planning to install that this first part of 2023. So that's another area that we would like to get that extraction well in. It will be connected to the existing infrastructure of the other pumping areas in the eastern area here, the Evergreen area up in this area of the map, and the Maple Road area has extraction wells that are currently being pumped. And so this extraction well here, what I believe it will be a reworking of a former injection well, a large diameter injection well. They'll make it into an extraction well. So that, again, we're hoping to be done here in the spring, and that will be connected to the existing infrastructure to allow this contaminated groundwater to be pumped from the extraction well and then pumped all the way over to the Gelman's treatment facility on their property in the western area. So there'll be all these extraction areas will be worked. There is a 200 gallon a minute limit of what can be put across the street to their treatment system. So they will basically utilize what is the most efficient way to remove most of as much mass of in the contaminated groundwater. So I anticipate that when this Rosewell is installed, it will be a big portion of that 200 gallon a minute capacity, at least initially. And then the system will be monitored. Monitoring wells will be sampled, and it will be adjusted to get the most efficient use of groundwater extraction and treatment, for the Gelman site. Like I said, the Sentinel wells, these were identified as Sentinel wells. They have been installed. All of these wells in yellow, Gelman has started sampling. We have data and information that I post monthly in the Access database. So if you're interested in, what concentrations are these wells, they have started that sampling. They are not on a agreed to sampling plan. I mean, I believe they're doing it quarterly as right now, but eventually when there is a new modified CJ, there will be a new monitoring plan for the Gelman site will be agreed to. And what I mean by monitoring plan is all the monitoring wells are sampled at different times, meaning some are sampled monthly, some are sampled quarterly, some are sampled twice a year, some are sampled every 2 years. So we'll have an agreement of what each of the wells will be sampled, and the new wells and the existing wells. So we'll review all monitoring wells that are being sampled and come up with a plan to sample the monitoring wells to allow the most efficient evaluation and review of what's going on at the Gelman site. The other locations that were in the part of the response activity order right now there will be some downgrading. These are part of what is historically been the down gradient area. They were in the response activity order. They have they are not planned to be installed immediately. So we will be reviewing what needs to be done in the down gradient area at some time in the future when things once these new well data well information is evaluated. That's pretty much what is currently planned by Gelman. Again, we are negotiating with them to get a new CJ, a modified CJ that brings back the the criteria, the 7.2 criteria for the drinking water and the 280 criteria for the GSI pathway. And but just I want everybody to realize that right now it's the third amended CJ that is being utilized, that they are following following as far as at the Gelman site. So the court sent us back to the third amended CJ.
So Roger has his hand up. Go ahead,
Yes.
Roger.
Yeah, I just want to point out to everybody, especially the new people on, when Dan talks about the 200 gallon per minute limit on the pipeline from Evergreen back to the core, that's because Gelman created a pipeline, a deep pipeline, bypassing local government input. And they decided back then what capacity that well could have. I think the original capacity was higher than that. They couldn't meet that capacity. The northern part of the transmission pipeline actually broke and leaked dioxane into the groundwater somewhere along the path. They relined the other the horizontal purge well that was in the same channel, and that's what they've been using ever since, and that's why it's 200 gallons per minute. So it wasn't anything that I don't think the DQ was at the time was in favor of having that pipeline bypass the local regulations. I think the pipeline was put in under more under oil drilling, horizontal drilling regulations, not under putting in pipelines in a residential area. But anyway, just so people know, that 200 gallon per minute is an artificial limit that Gelman imposed on themselves. And now apparently we're stuck with it because the EGLE doesn't have the enforcement capability to make them do a different kind of pipeline, use one that is subject to local regulations. The sampling for new wells and old wells, the frequency of that sampling, we've never gotten a hard criteria for how those sampling frequencies get developed. It seems to be more seat of the pants than actual hard data used in determining sampling frequency, and it seems like that could be tightened up.
Roger, I want to point out, I disagree with you a little bit there. Your description is incorrect. That the old monitoring plan was negotiated between EGLE and Gelman. So in the new monitoring plan will be negotiated between EGLE and Gelman. So we will have a say on how often a specific monitoring well will be sampled.
Well, I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm just saying the criteria you use to determine how often samples. I haven't seen any data analysis that shows how that fits into the criteria. Is the well going up quickly, in which case you'd maybe want to sample it more often.
Well, that's what will be evaluated once all the wells are in and we have some initial data on the new wells, and we'll look at trends as part of that evaluation and picking, setting the first sampling interval, the sampling intervals for each of the wells.
But it seems like it's done in a meeting with the lawyers and not, there isn't a criteria that says if it's going at this rate. We haven't seen any of the data analysis to back up the sampling frequency. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, the old monitoring plan was 2011. They were negotiated and done back then.
Well,
we haven't done anything new because all the wells aren't installed.
We haven't seen any data analysis ever about when frequency sampling, and that just seems to be, you know, because we've always done it that way. That's the way it's going to be forever. But it seems like we could do a better job with that. That's all. Thanks.
Beth, you have your hand up. I see.
Yeah, well, along the lines of the 200 gallon a minute extraction and treatment, if the plume is moving, and since it's a quarterly meeting, we have all the EGLE staff on, the plume is not contained. And why would EGLE not, the state not require the polluter to do a whole nother set of pipes and a whole nother treatment plant and a whole nother, like, so they can double how much they're removing and stop this?
Well, one of the things that you have to realize that there are objectives that are being utilized for what Gelman and what is being conducted at the site. When I mean objectives, there's two areas on this map, as you can see, a western area and an eastern area. Each of those areas have different objectives. In the western area, there's a non-expansion objective as part of the CJ, well, the third CJ too. It's a non-expansion objective, meaning
But the
that
plume is expanding.
well,
And
expansion is defined as concentrations in compliance monitoring wells that are above the criteria. Under the third, the criteria is 85, but under what will be working with for that would be 7.2. So it relates back to the criteria as far as what is defined as contamination and expansion of that contamination. So it's not just the detection; it relates to what we can enforce.
I understand, but the big picture is what I'm saying. All this time, you would think that the state, after 35 years, would have somehow figured out how to change this so that they can require more of the polluter, is all I'm asking or commenting on. And there doesn't need to, I know, it's not directed at you. It's
I know, but we're utilizing what is in the laws that we can, and that's the Michigan, Part 201, the regulations, the laws. That's how the CJ was identified. So you can't ask more than that are not of Gelman that are that you're not going to ask of any other liable party on any other site.
But the EPA can, right? The
Josh,
federal can.
well, I mean, they have the circular process is a different process, and so they have maybe some avenues that can be utilized at the site. So Josh has his hand up. Joshua Mosier, he's our director of my boss.
Sometimes. Yeah, Beth, understand your concern and understand the frustration. But as Dan pointed out, we can only act under the authority we're given, and unfortunately, it is strictly defined as it can at certain wells and the other detections. I mean, we can't act on our personal wants and needs and will, as government officials. I understand sometimes we would like that, but most people wouldn't like us to make up our own rules and authorities that we don't have. But in this case, our hands are a little bit tied in this scenario. So, but we appreciate the concern.
Thank you, Josh. Why don't we move ahead, Dan?
Okay. The next bullet is on the agenda is the Washtenaw County Health Department, EGLE and Washtenaw County Health Department homeowner well sampling. What I usually describe that as, we have long-term well sampling, residential well sampling that is conducted yearly with Washtenaw County and EGLE in conjunction, together, determine some sampling of residential wells. Let me go ahead and pop another figure. Do you see another figure on?
Yes.
Okay, so this is last year's sampling areas in the purple here. So we go. These are conducted yearly. Basically, EGLE hires Washtenaw County to go out and collect samples. Last year there was approximately 185 plus samples collected, and so these are the areas that were collected last year. There was some positive detections in the red areas. This is Elizabeth Road, where there has historically been positive detections in the 1 to 2 ppb range. And this is a out on I forget the name of the road out here, but it was a detection of 1 ppb that has happened a couple of times in the last couple of years. So what again, we working together, Washtenaw County. I'm going to flip to another map here, just a second. Washtenaw County and EGLE determines residential wells to be sampled. And what I want to point out, what the long-term monitoring program is doing is we are sampling residential wells to make sure that no one's at an immediate risk of drinking groundwater contaminated above the Michigan criteria. Historically, when it was under the third CJ, that criteria was 85. We are evaluating that as if it's being, the 7.2 would be the criteria. But what we're trying to do here is to make sure no one's at an immediate risk that they're drinking groundwater above the 7.2 criteria. So we sample locations. Historically, we've done some every other year. Kind of go out and just make sure that in the general area of the where wells are around the plume, we sample with Washtenaw County samples, and we send them to the DEQ laboratory. Now this year, like I said, last year was about 190, let's say plus or minus 185, 190 plus or minus were sampled. This year it's being proposed, we have a list of 244 samples, residential well samples. These same locations, Liberty, but we've also added some new locations, which I don't have marked in blue, up in the Scioto Township area, related to the sampling that Scioto Township did and had some detections. So we're going back and going in that area and take selected wells in that area just as another check. After it's been more than a year plus since they've sampled. So we're going to go back up there and take some samples there. But again, I wanted to point out the whole reason for the long-term monitoring is not to just determine is there something in the residential wells. It's to determine if someone's at an immediate risk. So that's why we mainly sample in the areas right near the plume, where if there was an immediate risk, this is where the areas that would come, would have that risk initially first. So like I said, 244 wells are proposed. That sampling will start in April, May timeframe this year. It will be completed by August, September, and I will have the data, after, again, I get the data as from the wells. The Washtenaw County Health Department will send letters out to the individual well owners with their data. And then I get copied and I post that information at the end of the year, with a well address and the result.
Jeff has a question. Go ahead, Jeff. Can't hear you, Jeff. I don't think your mic is working.
He put it in the chat. If or when a well exceeds the 7.2 state criteria, what happens next? What are the state actions?
Well, the state actions would be if what happens truthfully under the CJ, what we would try to do is there are some trigger limits that are below the criteria. If the contamination is related to the Gelman site, they are required to immediately provide some bottled water. And so, if Gelman doesn't do that, we would be requesting first of them. We would do that. The state would provide an alternate water supply, bottled water initially, and that particular well will be sampled again in some type of over some time period to evaluate is that going to be a continuing sample that is above the criteria. So that's what would be done first. We would make sure that someone is, that well is not used and an alternate water supply is provided, bottled water, and then we would evaluate that area, that well, additional wells in that area to make sure that it's not going to be a problem, a continuous problem.
So as I recall, the third consent judgment has a process if the plume extends beyond the boundaries of the no contact area, the prohibition area. They have to come up with a work plan to address that. Is that correct?
Yes,
So,
yes, there's like I said, there's two different areas. I've gone back to the the other map, if you can see. The eastern area is where the prohibition zone. So that objective in the eastern area is that contaminated groundwater is not allowed to, is not allowed to leave the prohibition zone at a concentration higher than the drinking water criteria. The current drinking water criteria is 7.2. The third amended CJ, it's 85. So yes, there is a process. If that happens, there is a process of where they have to start doing additional monitoring wells and evaluations to see, that, if it's getting close, the potential of moving across. And then if it does move across, they have, there is a process to make sure water supply wells are not impacted. And if they are going to be impacted, they have to evaluate providing alternate water supply, including all the way to the point, depending on that potential impact and the extent of contamination, including to the point of providing hooking up to municipal water that's available or bringing municipal water into areas. So they have to start evaluation immediately, providing a short-term water supply for residents and that are wells that are impacted, and then start looking at a longer-term remedy with that could mean additional groundwater extraction and pumping and treating to keep that contamination above the drinking water criteria from moving further away from the prohibition zone.
so Vince has a question. Go ahead, Vince.
I just want to remind people that EPA has a concern of concentration of 0.35 part per billion. And the Environmental Working Group has stated that 0.3 part per billion is a dangerous level. And they would suggest that we should have better control of that. And if people want tighter standards in Michigan, there is a polluter pay effort at the Lansing, and we should support that, I think. And hopefully we can get that reintroduced into Michigan law as it was years ago. So thanks.
Okay.
I do want to point out, Vince, you're a little incorrect in your statement. They don't automatically have a 0.35. They have a risk range that for any of the sites, but between 0.35 and 35. So site specifically, they would identify a rate, some number between 0.35 and 35. Again, it's related
that's
to
EPA, right?
That's EPA, right? They haven't set one across, generic across. 0.35 is not a generic number. They have a risk range that they will evaluate specific sites, with and determine which one to use related to site-specific data and information.
I think the drinking water standard is not a standard. It's a concern they have. They've published 3.35.
Right. They've identified that it could be 0.35. But they haven't said anything. I just want to make that clear. They got to go through their process when they do make it, if and when they make it a Superfund site. So there's a process under CERCLA that they utilize to determine what that number is. For our criteria is 7.2. You're right. Their criteria could be lower, but it's not automatic.
Oh, thanks. Well, that I didn't say it was a standard for EPA. So, but thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for
there is
discussing
no federal criteria. It's called maximum MCL, maximum contaminant level. There's nothing for 1,4-dioxane. There's no number. So it's kind of site specific when the EPA does a site.
Okay, thank you. why don't we move on to the next item? Vince, you get your hand up.
Okay, let me see here. The next item is the update of the MS4 violation and the Washtenaw County Water Resource Commissioner and WRD, EGLE WRD
Dan, are you
enforcement.
sharing any more screens?
Well, I could. I had some other that, you know, as part of my talks in the next couple bullets. So yeah, I will be. I wanted to, let's see here. Surface one.
Because if you're not, I want to jump back to the agenda so people can see what we're talking
Okay, let me, proposal, just a second here. This is, you know, this is something that has been shown in other meetings. Basically, where it is right now with the MS4 violation is Evan Pratt, Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner, and WRD are interacting or going to be interacting or going to be working together to work with Gelman to eliminate that illicit discharge. In December, you know, Evan sent this letter. This was brought before some of the other meetings, basically identifying to Gelman that, hey, there's a violation and you have to correct it, and basically has instructed or stated, hey, work with WRD directly, contact WRD. And work with them to eliminate the discharge. Where it is currently is they are working with Evan to come up with the activities that are going to be needed to enforce the MS4 standard. So that's all I have. I don't have anything specific of where they are. I want to manage expectations. I don't want to make any promises. So that's kind of a general overview. They have engaged, as this letter shows, and we'll be working with Gelman, interacting with Gelman to follow what is the Part 31 regulations for MS4, under an MS4 sewer system, to eliminate an illicit discharge.
Okay, Beth has her hand up.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the December letter was probably 1.5 years after the initial response about the MS4, and now we're going into the 2nd year of not treating this and just watching it move.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Roger, let me see what's left here. Then the next bullet is a GSI work plan for the Allen Creek drain. Basically, we had just a minute. Let me get the right letter here. I know. I'm sorry. I had it first, Roger. We have started the process, as I've identified in the last couple meetings. We have engaged Gelman. They submitted a GSI work plan to us. We sent a letter in November of last year that basically identified there was insufficient information in the work plan, and we gave them specific information that what is lacking, and we have not, are expecting to receive a revised work plan. We have not received that. We have not kind of moved forward with this because right now, because of what the court did. There's a little bit of, again, we're trying to, our concentrations right now are trying to negotiate a new agreement with new criteria. Since it's back at the 3rd amended CJ, the GSI criteria under the 3rd amended CJ is significantly higher. It's 2,800 versus 280, which was the criteria, the number we were utilizing when we were working with them for under the Allen Drain GSI work plan. So we have not engaged or They have not sent a revised work plan, and we have not engaged them back again because of trying to move forward with getting an appropriate and protective criteria in place before we do the effort of getting, you know, the GSI investigation done in the eastern area. And that goes for the western area too. They have a GSI work plan in the western area, but again, with the going back to the third CJ, the number is so significantly higher. We have not moved forward in trying to engage and have, you know, and get revised work plans, revised sampling, and a revised investigation from Gelman. Right now, we're just working to get the appropriate and protective criteria in place for the site. And then the next bullet is the Water Resources Division NPDES permit update. I've checked. I don't have any update there. They're still evaluating what we're talking about is Gelman currently has an NPDES permit that they utilize for their treatment system. They clean, you know, for the pump and treat system. So they discharge contaminated groundwater that has been treated to the unnamed tributary of Honey Creek near their facility under an NPDES permit. Well, that permit had expired, and they are in the process of renewing that, and they submitted a renewal, and our Water Resources Division is still, again, working with reviewing that and working together with the other part of the division for the MS4 violation, so that it's kind of all together there. But I do not have any new update of where that is as far as the current permit renewal. What will happen is they will, once that they have reviewed that with Gelman, they will offer that up for public comment and have a public meeting. They've said that they will have a public meeting related to that NPDES renewal, and but I don't have a date or you know, when that will occur.
Okay, and the remaining item is there anything new?
The only thing I have is the only thing I have, and I think it will be in the old business. I think Mike Moran may be discussing this too, but again, I have this figure is we are working with the Ann Arbor Township with their recent sampling that started last in October, that had at a particular residential well that had a positive detection above the 7.2 criteria. And we have been working with Ann Arbor Township, EGLE and Washtenaw County together have been working with Ann Arbor Township, and the EPA has come out and done some split sampling with us in February. This is the information, the compiled information is in October. There was a result from the Ann Arbor Township sampling using PACE Analytical, using method 522, that they identified a 9.1 part per billion concentration in that well. EGLE went out once we found out about it, working with Ann Arbor Township. EGLE went out and sampled that same and got a non-detect, and with our method 8260 SIM and with a detection limit of 0.5 ppb, we were non-detect. Ann Arbor Township PACE got another detection on that same day of 1.9 part per billion. And then we've decided to work together and do split sampling, you know, monthly split sampling. And that started in December. And we're going to sample another time here in March. So 3 months of split sampling. We'll, after the March sampling event with everybody, Ann Arbor, we split sample, take samples together at the same time from the same location. We send them, they send them to the PACE lab, we send them to the EGLE lab. And since then, everybody's has been non-detect. So there's some question about what happened back, you know, in October, but we're going to sample one more time in March, and then we're going to sit down and evaluate and discuss what, you know, what has happened, what is happening, and what would be any response, a continued response. For those of you that don't know, because we had a detection, EGLE decided to go ahead and provide bottled water to the residents at the 2433 Blueberry Lane. Just because we had that number, we didn't have all the answers for a precaution. We went ahead and are providing him bottled water as we evaluate what is happening there.
Beth has a question.
Sure.
Well, I don't see Mike with us today. So do you want to just go ahead and tell us what the last sampling results were for that?
Well, as you can see on the figure, you're seeing a figure, right, that has the plume. Okay, if you look at on the figure so we sampled split sampled the last in February 16th. So
And what were those results?
Well, as it says on the figure there, the results were non-detect. We sent it to our lab with a detection limit our lab has a detection limit of 0.5 parts per billion. So there was nothing detected above 0.5 parts per billion in our analysis. Ann Arbor Township sent their sample to Pace Analytical. They use a different method 522, and their detection limit is 0.12 part per billion, a little lower. And they had non-detect, at from that same sampling. Again, split sampling, we sample at the same time from the same location. In addition to that, in February, the EPA came out. If you remember in the last CARD meeting, they committed and they did come out and sample that's at the same time. They split samples with that, and they sent it off to their laboratories. I believe they are send it off for both methods. They're going to send it to a lab to use the 8260 method that we use, the EGLE lab uses, and the method 522 that the Pace Analytical, the Ann Arbor Township lab method. So I do not have any information of what their results are. They have not sent anything. Again, they have a little more strict policy of disseminating that information. They only will give it to the homeowner, and the homeowner will have to give it out to. They're allowed to give it out to anybody. We even have to. We have a sharing agreement with the EPA since we're working with them, and so does Washtenaw County have a sharing agreement. Even when we get that information, we really can't give it out. It has to be the homeowner. So once that, I'm sure the homeowner will has in the past to let they have in the past will disseminate that information. But again, both of our labs for the last 3 months have been non-detect. So we're going to do it another month and do an evaluation of what really occurred, and is it a continuing risk, or was there a problem during that first event?
Okay, Roger has a question.
Well,
Yes,
just
Roger.
a comment. This is a good time to interject that, yes, the EPA has a policy that they will share their sampling information of homeowner wells with the homeowner. The homeowner can do anything he wants with it. And they also have an agreement with the agencies, regulatory agencies, as Dan stated, but those agencies cannot release the data unless authorized by the homeowner. So it's really important that homeowners who have sampling results share it. That's the only way we know where the dioxin is. That's the only way we would know what the problem is in order to solve it. If we don't have a properly defined problem, it's really hard to come up with a proper solution. So this is any homeowners who have sampling results, it's really important that you share those sampling results so we can define the problem and hopefully craft a proper solution. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jack, that's really all I had. Does anybody have any questions?
I think you fielded those questions already.
Roger,
So-
I'll stop sharing if no one has any questions, right? I need to stop somehow.
Before you go, on Blueberry Lane, you're only testing just that one well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
As you can see, this map, this is the Ann Arbor Township, the original sampling from Ann Arbor Townships. You can see these other wells were tested during the October event. They were all non-detect. Only the 2433 Blueberry Lane had a positive detection. So we have, and it was above criteria. So we have concentrated on sampling that to see if that is an actual, they're drinking, contaminated groundwater, or did something occur. So that's why we're just sampling so far, just the 2433 Blueberry Lane.
All right, thank you. With that, and seeing no hands, I'm going to move on to the old business. Patty, do you have any update?
Sure. So as I think I've mentioned before, we installed 2 monitoring wells in the Garden Homes Park on behalf of the city. They're called Sentinel wells. Their purpose being that if there's anything migrating toward Barton Pond, that would be a location where we would be able to detect it. So those were installed, and I'm working with the city right now to figure out the sampling plan. Folks at the water treatment plant are going to take over sampling for those wells. So we're working out equipment at this point. So we want to be consistent with how they're sampled over time. Once we get that worked out, we'll also be doing some aquifer analysis on that well, just to get some properties. We're most interested in how groundwater is flowing out here, what the gradient looks like, to understand if contaminant could be moving in that direction. And we'll be trying to correlate that with some of the data that Gelman collects over time.
Yeah, we will be working with Patty. I will work with her, and we will try to come up when Gelman is sampling some of those wells, those new wells that I showed you, the Sentinel wells to the north along the northern prohibition zone. So to gather the information that will be utilized for groundwater flow, you want to collect the information together. The water levels at a certain time together. So we're going to try to coordinate that and that sampling. So we'll have both sampling results and groundwater elevations at the same time that can be used to do a larger picture of what the groundwater flow is to the north, in the northern area.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan.
And how will that data be shared with the public? Will EGLE get it then? Because Ann Arbor now doesn't share all their testing of like the Montgomery well results and.
Yeah, I don't have any information on Montgomery well, but I can tell you for this, I will work with Brian on the platform for that. Obviously, I can disseminate things, but maybe it makes sense to have it somewhere. I'll work with him on that.
As long as you still know, that's great. I'd hate to lose you, and then we don't really have an Ann Arbor representative. So
exactly.
Thank you.
I had thought that if it's shared with EGLE, which we've been talking that all along, we're going to share data back as we do now. If it's shared with EGLE, I can put it on, my database, so there can be a second spot to go hunt for it, if again, with everybody in agreement. So we're working through that, those specific issues right now. We will be working closely with Patty and the city.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Vince has a question.
Yeah, I would like to tack on that. The Alums Creek Watershed Group, and I think in the CAR group, we should promote Sentinel wells for shallow groundwater or near surface groundwater in the West Park area, especially where we had 0.449 part per billion. Dr. Bob Bailey, who's a member of CARD, has shown and published an article, International Journal, peer-reviewed, showing that 150 part per billion is a real concern for homeowners and businesses who may have water leaching into the basement, evaporating and exposing the homeowners or the business individuals. So I think, we're at, about 50 part per billion already. 150 is a dangerous number. I think that deserves more attention and more effort. And I would really like to see EGLE and the city work with the CARD group to try and get a better understanding of what we think is important. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands on it, put your hand down, Vince. I'm going to move on to the Yale Superfund research program. Do either of our doctors have anything to say on this? Is Rita still here?
Yeah, I'm here. I was not able to attend a recent meeting Roger had with Dr. Vasilou and his team. They are looking for opportunities to interact with our group and how we might, how they might be able to help us. But I wasn't able to attend that meeting.
I can give an update on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I had a, I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hour Zoom session with the Yale people, and to update them on, give them more background on the Gelman site and discuss how we might work together and what they might be able to do for us. There's one of his students that's working on a semester project that will use the Gelman site as a focus, and you know, she'll have a report on that as her work develops. So it was a good meeting. They have some resources coming in that would be very useful, not just for this site, but for sites like this. So we discussed that. I don't have a summary of the meeting published yet. I'm still catching up from the power outages. So that's basically all I can say about it at this point.
Okay.
The only other thing I can say is that there will be, there was a meeting of the steering committee and the external advisory board for the Yale Center, which I serve on. And I learned more about their center and the different projects that they're working on. One piece of bad news is that their budget was cut. Everyone's center, all the Superfund research centers' budgets were cut. Unfortunately, this is life being funded by the NIH. It just can be difficult. So I think they had just learned that, and they were trying to work through it when I was at that meeting. So that's all.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands, I'm going to move on to the next item. As you recall, the Court of Appeals reversed Judge Connor's remedial order and sent it back to the trial court. And I've posted a link to the Court of Appeals decision in the chat for this meeting. And I'm going to ask Kathy Knoll to comment further.
Okay, so there was a status conference held on February 8th with all the interveners, EGLE, Gelman, in front of Judge Connors. And another status conference is scheduled for April 13th. So during the February 9th status conference, basically, the judge told the parties that an answer is not required yet to the complaint that the county filed on February 6th. And he has asked the interveners to refrain from filing complaints because of the active negotiations going on between EGLE and Gelman. I think there's hope that some kind of settlement agreement that's agreeable to both parties might be approved before the next status conference. So everything's up in the air. The interveners are not part of this. We really have no knowledge of what's going on. And I will update people as soon as I know anything more. I also wanted to say that the EPA has contacted Scioto Township. They've requested our well testing data, and all of our well testing data has been shared with the EPA. So that's basically it. Are there any questions?
James has a question.
Okay.
I'll have another question for you, Kathy, in a minute. Roger, like you, I've been overwhelmed with power issues, and we have a flooded basement. So that's why I was late to the meeting today, and I've missed several things. One of the things that I missed is apparently last night, City Council took action regarding enforcement of the 2006 consent judgment.
I'm going to comment on that.
Was that discussed already? And go ahead, Jack.
No, I was going to comment on that.
Okay. All right. I'll wait for that. I guess I may have another question. I guess I'll hear what you have to say, Jack.
Okay. Last night, the city council went into closed session to discuss the content of a privileged advice memo they received from the city attorney. They didn't say what the subject was, but when they returned to open meeting, they amended their agenda, and they passed a resolution directing the city attorney to take action to enforce the city's 2006 settlement agreement with Gelman. It's, unclear as to what they're up to, but basically I believe that they're just trying to remain at the table during the discussions with Gelman. So they've directed the city attorney to go forward on that. And I posted a link in the chat to that 2006 settlement agreement. It's not very vigorous, but that's the extent to which the city apparently feels it can take action. So go ahead, James.
Yes, my follow-up question, and thank you, Jack, is to Mr. Nagel. I see that he is, at least his office is online. Does David have any further comment or characterizations in terms of EGLE's interactions with Gelman at this time?
No, I can't. I mean, we're in confidential settlement discussions.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and put your hand down. Anything else on this? I guess we can move on to the next item. But Mike's not here, is that correct? Okay. Then I think we'll skip Blueberry Lane. And Kathy, do you have anything to update us on the Knights of Columbus property?
No, there's no update.
Okay, the next item is the sending the resolution to elected officials. I will admit that I did not accomplish that this month, and that's on at the top of my to-do list. So I have nothing further to report on that. James, is your hand up again?
Yes, it is. And that is I've looked over the resolution, and Jack, I think we're basically ready to go on that. Something that you're probably not aware of is that the polluters pay bills, according to our political director at the Sierra Club, has not been resubmitted for this legislative session. So our getting this communication out will be timely.
Right.
So I can assist you and Beth with this.
Thank you. Anything further on that item? Then I'm going to turn it over to Roger for his update. You're mute, Roger.
There, I think I have this up now. So these are my notes that I had prepared in between the power outages. Didn't have a chance to update it after this last 2-day power outage. So I'll go in the order that it's in, but then I have some new news that just came in an hour before our meeting this morning. So I'm still in the process of updating the Google Earth mashups with the new data through 2022. These are some numbers of the different sources of data. This is how many wells and for how many sample locations there are. If you add this up and then eliminate the duplicates, there are 2,761 unique names for well and sampling locations from those data sets. In other words, this is information that we have for where the dioxin is in the soils and in groundwater in the area from different sources over different time periods. Clearly, there aren't 2,700 different sampling locations. Some of those are, we have the problem again with the naming conventions that different people are using are not consistent. So I've been working on making those numbers, the names, to be able to translate the naming of the sampling locations so you can compare apples and apples instead of having to do everything by hand. This set of numbers is just one piece of I started this numbers spreadsheet of all of the different numbers that I have through the SRSW data sets that we've been able to gather from different sources. So we're talking about a lot of sets of data that we have. We just haven't had an easy way to integrate all of this, and this is one of the areas that we can use help with from the EPA and from the Yale people and hopefully some local people as well. Some of these I haven't filled out all the data here for, again, because of the power outages. You know, when you're living temporarily in a third world country where you can't have reliable power supplies, sometimes the rest of your work suffers. So I mentioned this, that we do need to standardize how we name and index all of the data sampling locations so that we can come up with some good, you know, a full integrated data set that tells the whole story, not just pieces of the story. Something that we still are in need of is a review of how all of these meetings and groups and secret negotiations, which we don't have access to, how those all fit together in solving the problem. This is another area that I think the Yale people have interest in regards to. This would be a good demonstration site for other forever chemical sites around the country and the world. And the more people we have addressing it like that, and if we can do a good job of it, we're going to have, this site's going to be around for many, many decades, long after all of us are dead. We need to better organize it now so it just doesn't fall into chaos. And I think the courts need to be aware of that too. Okay, I'm going to jump to, if there's any questions to this, please raise your hand or let Jack know. I want to jump to the recent news, and I will bring up this spreadsheet. So just this morning, Gelman provided their February sampling results. And because they provide it in this format, combining the well name, the date, and the time, and sometimes the sequence number that, you know, if they have 2 samples on the same date and time, I have to do some special parsing of the data in order to analyze it. But this is what I've been doing every month for the past 2 or 3 years. So you can see the results here that we get from Gelman, but there's no indication on the Gelman reporting about what is this? Is this significant? You know, is 130 parts per billion at MW92, is that significant? Well, with my analysis, yes, it is. That's a new high. Same for MW130I. That's a new high. You know, it's gone up 20% since the last high. MWKD1D is also another high. Some of these are ties. Here's a tie of the high, the 370 at MW76. So as of 2020, with February, there's 4 new highs or ties of high. I haven't gotten to the point of showing those on the my Google Earth mashups yet, but you can get an indication of what it's going to look like when I go back here and turn on the max to date by year. And if we play this through all the years, these white donuts are all the highest ever readings for the site over the years. And so once I add the 2022 data, you'll see another set of highest ever readings. You'll see that some of the recent readings tend to be in the northern portion of the plume. Contrary to what Gelman's predictions were. And of course, that's not including, we don't have the all of SIO's data in the 2022 EGLE Gelman database. If we take a look at that, I've posted I've made some Google Earth layers that show that. So here's again all of the sampling that SIO did, and each bullseye here that's white is a non-detect. Each one that's yellow is a detect. So somehow all of this area here, of all these yellows, were missed for years. And it's good that SIO did this sampling, because now we have an idea where this dioxin is going straight to the river. Here's a possible path of that. And last time I showed the 3D version of this. showing that these wells tend to be at a certain depth, deeper than some of the wells around it. And I'm going to overlay on top of that what Dan referred to earlier as their 2023 sampling they're going to do in SIO to take over, because SIO's not going to do any, they're not going to have taxpayer funded sampling by SIO. Instead, EGLE will do it using their settlement agreement back in 2015, where they got $500,000, I think, to do forever sampling of homeowner wells around the peripheral. So all of these blue chevron, these arrows here, is where EGLE is going to do sampling of homeowner wells. It's supposed to be within 1,000 feet of where sampling, where detections were found before, and it pretty much is. There's a couple of places where it's around near my neighborhood here where they could have extended out a little more. You know, here's a hit here, so these homes here probably should be included off of Deerfield. Anyway, and of course they're going to be doing more sampling along Dexter Road across from the KFC property and going back to Breezewood where they had hit here before. And of course there's already a nested set of wells on Breezewood too. It's already part of the regular sampling that Gelman does. So anyway, this is a preview of what the next Google Earth mashup is going to look like once I have time to complete it. And I'll welcome anybody who wants to help do this, learn how to do it. It's important that we have continuity of this kind of information so that we can have a better representation of the reality of the Gelman site. I've tried to pull together information from various sources and use Google Earth as a platform. I feel that not many people are using this for decision making, even though this is probably the most comprehensive set of data aggregation out there. EGLE has not updated their RockWorks model for a couple of years. They're still using 2021 data, or even 2020 data, I think, where volunteers like me have the tools to take the data, if it's available, and show a better picture of the reality of Gelman's dioxane than we can get from the regulators. We need to formalize this, especially as the EPA comes in. And the EPA probably doesn't have the resources to do this either. It would be a very expensive thing for consultants to do, but teamed up with knowledgeable citizens. Here we're home to a world-class university. There's a lot of things we could do as a team that any one entity can do better than any one entity can do by themselves. And so that's kind of been my goal, is to promote that and give the public a better picture of what's going on and how changes in laws and regulations and rules and in standard operating procedures can facilitate that. Some of the data needs to be cleaned up before it can be posted. It's like some people don't respect the data. And like they're not using the data. They're not doing a monthly review of the data. And that's where the public can come in and fill that gap. But it needs to have some cooperation from all the entities to help do that. Let me jump back to my outline here. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about something like this, information infrastructure diagram, so that these are the different entities that I've identified over the years that touch on the Gelman dioxane site. And there's information flows between various entities here. We need to have a unified view of who's in charge of which aspects. One of the things we can do, if we had funding, and maybe we'll get that with the EPA, and CARD can morph into being the citizen group that EPA can team with to help provide a unified view of the Gelman site, and that we won't have to have each local government try to do their own Gelman sub web page and keep that up to date. They can rely on a unified already approved entity like CARD to have a better picture of what's going on with the Gelman site. We'll have to wait for these confidentiality agreements to evaporate, be removed, so we can include that kind of data. There's still data from 2016 and 17 that the public hasn't seen, that people are making decisions based on these confidentiality agreements and negotiations. And the public cannot weigh in on whether those are good decisions or not because we don't have the data. So basically the public is being played by Gelman lawyers successfully, and we need to change that through state regulations. And the will of the people doing negotiations. If they're not up to the task, then we need to convince them otherwise. That this is a huge problem. This is probably the biggest 1,4-dioxane contamination site of its type in the country, and some people aren't treating it like that. Anyway, that's my update for now. I'll take questions.
I don't see any questions. Any comments or questions? Alrighty. The next thing on the agenda is whether or not we should cancel or reschedule the July 4th meeting. I don't think that's a quarterly meeting, is it, Beth?
No, the June would be the quarterly. So last year we took August meeting off. Maybe this year we just do July since it falls on the 4th. Is that okay with everybody? Like maybe today's a good day to decide it so I can get the county website updated and.
I would support that idea.
Everyone else?
Yeah, I
Any?
support it too.
Okay, sounds good.
So what's the result? We cancel the July 4th
Cancel,
meeting.
just cancel it. I know Jenny's on maternity leave. Kristen, do you know a person I should contact to get the website updated or?
You can just send it to me, Beth, and I'll make sure it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
That was easy. So the next item on the agenda is the idea that when we elect officers in October, that we expand the size of the CARD board. Beth, do you want to discuss this, or Roger?
Well, we need to have more people involved.
Yeah, and I thought we have such a strong citizen group that comes to these meetings regularly, and a lot of talent and everything from former planning commissioners to former toxicologists to lots of brains. So maybe we, could just get 2 members at large too, that if anyone is interested, we wouldn't give you too much to be tasked with, but to come to board meetings. Sometimes just the executive board does meet or have some pre-meetings. We have at times, and with some of our elected officials. Yeah, I don't know. It's just up for discussion. It was something I thought of, especially since now I'm further and I can't really do local things. So I was hoping, like how James is taking over this resolution and getting it to our elected officials. Other things like that, just you might, I don't know what you guys think.
Well, one of the things I'm thinking of, that with all of the sampling that's done in Scioto and Ann Arbor Township, there should be some of those people that want to get involved on behalf of their neighborhoods.
Some residents. Yeah.
It's always been very important to have people on the ground in the neighborhoods. And Beth is a fine example of that, because she's taken the lead for her neighborhood. But then she moved away. So we always have to replace people. And, it's with the resources that we have, it should be pretty easy to get people up to speed. It shouldn't take more than, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. Right?
So I support the idea of expanding the executive board by two people. I imagine that requires us to amend our bylaws before October, and so perhaps if we bring a resolution to the next meeting to make that amendment effective in October. Go ahead, Rita.
It's going to be important that we have enough to make a quorum. So that's,
Go ahead, Rita.
Yes, I support it. I think that it could be helpful, and I would just say that I would be willing to serve. I think that it might facilitate communications between our group and the Yale Center, and a few other things. So I worried a little bit about Beth and how reliant we are on her as the secretary moving away. But I know that my limitations, the reason I haven't volunteered, I know you've asked for volunteers for people who would be willing to take on the secretary. I really don't want to be responsible for making sure, for example, the meetings get set up, the agenda gets out. I really don't do those things well, but I could do other things well to help.
Well,
like
that's it. Yeah. And I don't mind doing the minutes. So this could really benefit, like I could just keep doing the clerical stuff. And I mean, I'm still allowed, even though I don't live there anymore, but I think we need more boots on the ground, you guys. And yeah, I think you volunteered to maybe even start a bylaws subcommittee, and we can look at the bylaws. And so anyone interested, even if there's any staff or other card members that want to look at the bylaws as well, please email me, myself or Jack or Roger, and let us know you're interested in. Maybe first we'll start a bylaws committee to review it and add 2 members at large that can do more of the tasks. Like if there was to be a town hall, someone that could help just take care of that one event and roll with it and get the room reserved and all of that kind of stuff with the staff members. And so thank you, Rita and Jack and Roger. And
all right.
I'll remind everyone that it's only been since 2016 that CARD has had bylaws.
They're a good thing to have, though, and quite frankly, a bylaws committee doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just a good idea for people to look at them once a year, a couple people to look at them and say, is this how we're really running the group? You know?
Well, that's good. And we don't have, the election is supposed to take place in October, but we haven't really had a contested election or any other. So we've kind of just done it. I think we did it officially 2 years ago, just because we thought we should. But this would be a chance to have that election too. And maybe we want to even put that in the bylaws, that it doesn't have to be annually, but as needed in October, or for sure every 3 or 4 years, something like that. I don't know. But
yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to have more local government representatives, not necessarily on the board, but at least at meetings that we can call on. Like I mentioned earlier about the different departments of the EGLE, at least come on quarterly meetings and understand, be able to hear what the issues are if they're making decisions relating to permits and things like that. We all have to be together on this, and CARD is the entity that was designated to help coordinate everything. And as certain government members have been hamstringed by their confidentiality agreement, not being able to tell what's really going on, it's hampered CARD's effectiveness. So that's why we keep harping about the confidentiality agreement has to be resolved, because
Oh, you're breaking up.
Can't hear you, Roger.
but we need to have more,
There you go.
a better playing field to work on.
Right. So I think we're in agreement on adding 2 members to the executive board in October, and we need to work up an amendment before that point in time. Is there anybody present who has a contrary opinion on that idea? Seeing none, I think we'll move forward on that. All right, I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda. That's the non-agenda items. I'm going to call on Rita. You're mute.
Unmute.
2 things. One is that I put a link in the chat to a symposium that's going to be held this Friday. It's being put on by the students of the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. And they have invited Jack and Roger and myself to be on a panel to discuss citizen response to this Gelman contamination. They wanted to hear very specifically about what how communities can respond and deal with the contamination. So that's going to be this Friday. It's free to attend, and the link is on the chat. The second thing I want to let people know is that I have been appointed to the State Public Health Advisory Council, and I will start serving before the end of this month. And it's a 1-year appointment, and it might offer some opportunities for me to bring to the state level concerns and ideas about environmental issues.
Congrats, Rita.
Thanks. I think, are you still on it?
I am.
Well, I'll see you there then.
Yeah. I think we have our first in-person meeting in years, so I'm excited to see everyone again and meet some new faces.
Any comments or questions? Do you know whether Congresswoman Dingell has been invited to the symposium?
I do not know. One thing interesting about the symposium, not only is CARD being represented there, there's only there's 4 main events. There's 2 speakers, one of whom is Robert Bilott, who is the lawyer that was featured in the film Dark Waters, which is a film about the West Virginia PFAS contamination, and Rob Bellot successfully fought DuPont regarding that contamination and poisoning in that community. And so he's going to be a featured speaker. And as far as I understand, this symposium is not going to be live streamed, so you cannot join it remotely. We have been told that they will record the panel discussion, because Roger asked that. What else? And then, so there's 2 speakers, there's the panel, and then there's going to be a poster session, because this is the student symposium. The students organized it. So, but I don't know who's been invited. I have nothing to do with it this year. Yay. I used to be the faculty advisor, because the training grant, the NIH training grant, trainees would basically take the leadership role and run this annual symposium. But I'm retired now. It's not my problem. Not my responsibility.
Welcome to retirement.
When you do get the recording, share it with, I can share it with Cardcore then and everything.
We'll see if we can do that.
Okay.
Rita, you might want to talk about the other speaker.
Well, the other speaker is Bill Sook, who just retired as the inaugural and forever almost director of the Superfund research program at the NIEHS and NIH.
How does that relate to the Superfund research centers that are at Yale?
It funds it. The Superfund research program funds the Superfund research centers, and also has some, in more recent years, in the past decade, will fund some individual grants on targeted areas. He's a character.
Yeah. Do you think his retirement had anything to do with the funding getting cut, or did he?
No. I do not think so at all. Bill Sook has been, he's past retirement age.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It's going to be good to talk to him at the symposium.
So are there any other non-agenda items that anyone would like to bring up? Seeing none, I'm going to conclude the meeting with reminders that the next meeting is April 4th at 6 p.m.
So we're getting closer and closer to having an 1.5-hour meeting instead of 2-hour meeting.
That's good.
I try to do what I can.
Well, it helps when people don't show up and don't have anything to say at length.
Yeah, actually, the confidentiality agreement might be a good thing in that regard.
I'm being sarcastic, but yes. So Mr. Hayner is put into chat. He wants to know where the School of Public Health is.
It's on at the hill.
The School of Public Health is on Observatory Avenue, right up the hill from the hospital's main entrance on East Med Center Drive. It's at the corner of Observatory at East Med Center Drive. It's a block away from the Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Is that where
across the street from Alice Lloyd?
Yeah.
Is that where the symposium is being held?
I will double check, but I am pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in the School of Public Health. It's all going to be in the main floor, but you can register. The link is a couple of messages up in the chat. If you can't find the link, just send me an email. I'll send you the link, or you can Google the Environmental Health EHS Symposium 2023 UMich, and you'll pick it up.
I think he's right. The last one we went to like 3 years ago was at the League, wasn't it?
Right. There's always this issue about rooms, but evidently Maggie was fierce and won, which I'm impressed, because I lost a couple of those battles. When I was directing a training grant, they just get real weird about rooms. I guess it depends who's in charge too.
Well, I gotta warn people that I had a meeting at the School of Public Health a number of years ago, and I went to the wrong tower. You can't. There's, yeah. The main room is on the south side of the street, right?
Oh. Yeah, but I think my bet is that there are going to be signs up. The students in the past,
Okay.
they were very good about having signs that directed people where to go. And if there aren't, if I get there and I see there aren't, I will tell somebody.
Yeah.
Hey, put a sign up on the other place
I'm supposed to be
saying
getting,
go over there across the street.
I'm
Yeah,
supposed to be getting an email about where to park. So
yeah, it's probably P2
that's
in the hospital. That's usually where they go.
yeah. Well, that's where I parked that time when Dr. Hannah
Atisha.
Yeah, when she
Mona Hannah Atisha.
yeah, Mona Hannah Atisha. I ran into a friend from that was on the way there, and when we got there, the room was full.
Oh, it was packed. Oh no, that was the most highly attended event ever in the history of the School of Public Health.
So I was turning around to go to one of the overflow rooms, and the friend I was with was recognized as a dignitary, and there's a few seats down the front row. So he's heading down the aisle, and he says, "Come on down." So, and that's when you were there, introduced me to Dr. Mona.
Yeah, that was quite the event. Anyway, but yeah, so I think it's, you know, there's probably going to be a big crowd. I'm not sure exactly which rooms they're in. It doesn't say on the flyer.
Hello.
I know.
Hey, I might have got working.
You have voice.
We can hear you.
What was the problem?
I don't know. It was with Zoom.
I had trouble with Zoom earlier.
Yeah, I had this, and I was in court last week over my stupid house, and I couldn't get it to work. And they went ahead without me. They wouldn't let me say nothing. I was like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had to get off of the meeting, go out of the meeting, close my computer down and restart it during this meeting.
I tried that a couple times here. So I'm relieved it's working. I'm sorry I wasn't in the rest of it.
Yeah, it's always a good practice to shut down your computer and reboot it before you start with a big Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Fortunately, DTE did that for me. So
with that, I'm going to conclude this particular Zoom meeting because some of the participants in this meeting have other things to do today. Not all of us are retired.
But Jack and Roger, are you going to hang on for just a few minutes?
I am.
Great.
So
all right.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for the invite, Rita. I'm going to check that out Friday. I really enjoyed it last time I went there. It was nice talking to people, and you know.
Hi, Ian.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Roger.
Oh, you're welcome, you guys.
Appreciate
Good
it.
seeing everyone.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So Rita, I should stop recording, right?
Yes.
Stop the share. Stop recording. Over here as well.
So really, the main thing is just that we agree on the order